Welcome back to Retro Rebound. In today's video, we are talking about Pokemon Legends ZA. This is the follow-up to Pokemon Legends Arceus, and this is one of the rare modern Pokemon games that I actually defend a little bit. Yeah, it's horrendous to look at on your Switch One, but it did refresh the Pokemon formula in enough interesting ways that got me excited again. Hey, monster catching isn't tedious anymore. It's a big part of the game's progression, in fact. Hey, fighting actually has a couple of new wrinkles to it, and it's out in the overworld instead of constantly loading into these weird-looking arenas. Hey, the vibes are right. Like, this is chill and yet primitive. Like, this is awesome. So I really liked Legends Arceus, and I found it to be a pleasant surprise when we so quickly got the announcement of Pokemon Legends ZA. However, as many of you have seen on Retro Rebound, my interest in Pokemon, which was already taking a nosedive, then got cut off even more so when I played Digimon Story Time Stranger. Felt like I saw the light there, been having a lot of fun with it. So I really didn't have as much anticipation for Pokemon Legends ZA like I once did. But then I started to see the Pokemon community talking about this game. I started to hear things like, it's some of the best Pokemon we ever got. It's some of the most fun, some of the most fast-paced. I went fast-paced and Pokemon don't go hand in hand together, but okay. Some of the best storytelling. It's just one of the best Pokemon games. I went, okay, all right, I'll bite, I'll pick it up, I'll see what's going on here, and we'll talk about it. So are any of those statements true? I've got a lot of thoughts, so let's not wait any longer. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're new here, you're into what's going on with nostalgic, retrospective content, or the occasional day one-ish review, consider subscribing. And before we keep going, a quick word from this video's sponsor. The following video is sponsored by NordVPN. You're likely familiar with NordVPN at this point, but if you're not, allow me to introduce it. This improves your internet security by hiding your digital location from online trackers, and it masks your IP. So whether you hit a website without encryption or you're on some spotty Wi-Fi, NordVPN ensures that you're protected. They've just added a new threat detection pro. So let's say you're like me and you're scrolling Instagram, you find that one shop that goes, hey, that's the thing you were really looking for, and you click on it, you go, oh, that's at the price that's cheaper than the other place. It's probably a fake shop. Now, instead of turning this into a guessing game and trying to dive maybe into a scam to save some money, NordVPN has you covered. You just have your Threat Detection Pro on, and it'll let you know if, hey, this is a fake store. But okay, you're listening to all this, you're like, Maddie, I take good care of myself online, or I don't really care. Okay, well, you like saving money, right? Let's say you're like me, you're looking for a trip to Japan next year, maybe. With a VPN, you can utilize regional pricing, and that'll allow you to travel either for work or for pleasure for much cheaper, or if you want to access the broadest amount of content online. Certain streaming services only offer particular shows in particular regions of the world, so you can take advantage of all of that from the comfort of your home with NordVPN. So what are you waiting for? Get exclusive access to NordVPN using my link in the description down below. They have a 30-day money-back guarantee, so if you're for some reason not happy with NordVPN, you can get your money back easy as that. Again, link in the description down below. Shout out to NordVPN for sponsoring today's video. All right, let's rip off the Band-Aid here. I did have some fun with Legends ZA so far. A lot of the bones that make Arceus great are still here. The catch-em-all gameplay formula still works well. Battles happening in the overworld are still here. So a lot of the bones that made a Pokemon game I love great are also still here. However, I think the reason you're seeing strong opinions on either side of the fence for this game is because of the changes to the combat system. Gone are the strong, agile style moves, and it's replaced with a more action-oriented combat system akin to something like Xenoblade, where you lock onto your target and all your face buttons represent moves, and a lot of it is timing-based, ranged-based, and for some people, I think this is going to work out really well. But it's really about the pace of it all. 5 trainer fights in ZA are started and finished in the time it would take one in any other Pokemon game, including Arceus. And there's a win and a loss with that. It means that the fun factor of ZA is that constant feeling of inching forward. Another fight's done, another research level progressed, another Pokemon captured, I found another Mega Shard that I'm going to mine. This is very different from the fun factor that I personally found in Arceus, the increasing the research levels of individual Pokemon and incentivizing you to capture the same ones over and over. The turn-based combat still being there, but adding tactical layers. The variety of biomes, while ugly, still made the world feel expansive, where it's the exact opposite in ZA, and just that primitive, unknown nature of Pokemon at this point in the timeline gave that whole world a sense of real mystery. What I'm saying is that I can see how people are having fun with Legends ZA, and I don't think it's a sin because it does have that addictive task switching where you're going from mission to mission. And it is my belief that Game Freak actually knew of Legends ZA's shortcomings, and that's why they made the game this way, because Arceus was so confident enough to let it all breathe and soak in, while ZA never wants you to pause for a single moment, given the second you do, I do think the House of Cards comes crumbling down. However, this is a very particular fun factor. You may hear that and be like, wow, I actually kind of like that. You may like it a lot more than Arceus, but for me, I do view it as a bit of a drop-off. I was a bit worried when I saw Legends ZA was going to be in Lumio City, only because I thought, well, certainly we're going to leave that city, right? Right? No, you don't. You're like in the city the whole time, and that's the drawback for me beyond the visuals, which we'll talk about, is the setting, man. I don't think Lumio City is bad in the terms of Pokemon settings, but just to be in this samey looking city for so long is so tiring. And to know that like I'm already getting a little bored of it at almost 10 hours, and then I'm seeing people who are like 30, 40 hours in being like, yeah, you're still in the city. Oh man, that really puts a pin in my balloon, because at least for as bad as Legends Arceus did look, at least the game did switch up the biomes enough and made it interesting to look at. But the game just feels so limited because of this setting, and it's hard to buy into it. I'm not trying to like take a Pokemon game extremely seriously, but what I'm trying to convey to you all is that like you'll go to a wild zone and it's like 10 feet wide. You'll find like a Bellsprout and a Sableye like stacked right on top of each other. You'll catch them both and you'll kind of just run out of Pokemon, and you'll leave the wild zone and then just go explore more of the city, and maybe you'll find like a random Pokemon on a rooftop. Like it feels like they only had a small set of assets somehow, despite making like a game just before this that had like nothing but wilderness. They only had this small set of assets, and they're like, well, we can only do this in the city. And so you have these wild zones, and then you have just the city itself, and there's no real variety between them, and there's no like getting lost in, like, I thought these would be big expansive wild zones. Like I was thinking Safari Zone from the old Pokemon games, but I found this to be particularly really underwhelming, and it robs a lot of the identity of the game. I think if not for a pretty strong soundtrack thus far, this game would feel pretty hollow in the terms of its setting. Which, as many of you know, I do grade pretty harshly when it comes to Pokemon games, because a lot of these games are the coziness, the comfort, the atmosphere, the vibe. And I always remember walking through those villages of Legend Arceus. Like that is a screenshot just imprinted on my brain, but I don't get the same feeling with Lumio City. And then, of course, the suckiest part of it all is we gotta talk about how it looks again. I know this is like the umpteenth time I've brought it up, but I'm gonna keep beating that war drum until Game Freak and Pokemon Company and Nintendo figure it the hell out. Look, it's one thing to have the character models look the way they do. I think the characters and the creatures at this point, if this is the standard they want to set, is fine. I think it's acceptable. In fact, I'd go to the length of saying, yeah, it looks pretty good. The environments are so bad. And I get that this is a Switch 1 game with a Switch 2 upgrade. Don't even... You want to hurt your eyes? Go look at the Switch 1 version. We'll put it on screen right now. It's terrible, but it's really just the lack of 3 dimensions in a 3-dimension game that bugs me. Like, these buildings are perfect squares. There isn't any, like, the shutters on windows are flat. The railings you find are flat. A lot of the doors you find are flat. So none of the environment has any depth. So it has no ability to catch any light. No shadows are cast. So it just looks like a PlayStation 2 game. And it's weird because it does have that old school energy where, again, it's just pure fun factor. But I just cannot sit here and accept, well, it's fun, so who cares, when it looks like this. There are so many points in this game where I'm like, dude, ew. And also, they had the audacity to put in a photo mode. I saw that and went, what are you guys doing? Do you have any shame? Like, this happened one time before where we had Pokemon Scarlet and Violet show us this ugly vista, and they were like, look how beautiful it is. Isn't Paldea incredible? And I'm like, not looking like this, it isn't. I know we're kind of beating a dead horse here. I know it's a tiring conversation, but it's, I think, impossible to get around because, like I've said so many times before, it's distracting. It takes you away from the game, and it sets the bar really low, because then you have moments like you see some of the mega evolutions. Have y'all seen Mega Starmie? I mean, it's one thing if all the other new mega evolutions cook, but they're really not good. And so you see what the bar for quality is when you just give Starmie legs and have this dude running around and be like, yeah, that's fine. Like, there is no quality bar on the visual front here. And again, if they were stuffing it full of so many things that it was unbelievable and this is unprecedented, then I think you understand, your brain makes that connection to like why the visuals aren't that great. But when you look at what the game's doing, it's not really pushing too much tech anywhere where it could look better. And so when you have that combined with a stale setting, and by stale I mean the city is static, sometimes even the fun factor doesn't feel enough to keep you hanging around. So what are you doing in this game? Well, a lot of it is like Legends Arceus. You're going to be roaming a setting and you're going to be catching Pokemon by sneaking around in bushes, and you're going to weaken these Pokemon sometimes. And I do like how if you completely wipe the Pokemon's health out, you can pretty much guarantee that you're going to catch them. And now there are a ton of side quests in the game, so you'll be able to catch a ton of these Pokemon or specific variants of the Pokemon and like trade them into people who are looking for them. I did again find the completionist aspect of the game really fun. When you're not catching, you're trying to get tickets, and that's because you're trying to raise your rank from, you guessed it, Z all the way up to A. Once it turns into nighttime, then battle zones are erected in the city. Trainers go out at night and they start duking it out in Lumio City. And so in these battle zones, you're going to fight a ton of trainers. You can sneak up on them, fight them in real time. If you sneak up on them, you'll gain an advantage. You can sometimes just wipe out their Pokemon with a sneak attack and you'll get tickets. Now, you'll also find little bounties that you can collect in these battle zones, and these will allow you to rack up points even quicker. You're also going to get prize medals. Once a night of fighting trainers is done, you'll usually have like 18 fights done, and that amount of wins that you get will kind of determine your multiplier at the end of all of this. So it'll take the amount of prize tokens that you've picked up, translates it into Pokemon money, then the amount of fights you win is a multiplier, and you combine that together and you get a lot of money at the end of the night. When you have enough tickets, you'll be able to challenge someone for the next rank, and you'll keep fighting up and up and up the ladder. So it's kind of taking the whole fighting the gym idea, but breaking it down into individuals, but also allowing you to progress this through a mode. And so what this kind of ends up being is during the daytime, you're just grinding and doing whatever. And then once nighttime hits, you go and fight your ass off. This is where you can see, process, and understand the quickened combat pace and how it impacts the overall design of Pokemon Legends ZA. Because in any other Pokemon game, if I told you there's a stretch of the game where you're likely fighting 20 or so trainers, you'd say, that sounds tedious, and I'll probably see you in over an hour, and you'd be correct about that. With Legends ZA, though, you could fight those 20 trainers or even more in probably under 20 minutes. Like a minute for a fight is starting to actually push it in this game. You can sneak up on trainers, you can ambush them, you get the advantage. Even in setup trainer fights, it goes really fast. You drop your Pokemon out there, you lock onto your target Pokemon. The UI does a great job on the bottom right corner communicating what moves are going to be super effective versus what moves just do standard damage. And swapping out Pokemon mid-fight is really quick. You just scroll that bottom bar on the left corner of the screen, you throw whatever Pokemon you need right out there, it happens in real time. There's no waiting your turn or anything like that. For those of you who like the bones of the Pokemon combat system but want it a lot faster, this combat system will be right up your alley. However, I do have to throw out there that I think the claimed mechanical overhaul for this combat system by both fans and the developers of the game alike has been largely overstated. It is very much the same combat system with zero tactical depth, might I add, outside of weakness targeting, which you've done for over 20 years now. It is not like Xenoblade, as some have said, because there is no positional advantage. There is a difference in timing for moves that are close range versus long range, but you never really feel a need to exercise those tactical advantages like you maybe did with the agile and strong style moves that you'd find in Legends Arceus. And so this combat system is exactly that. It is the same standard Pokemon combat system. It just goes a lot quicker. And that makes you question the fun factor if you're like me and you like to dissect these things, because you go, okay, it's not like I'm having a bad time with the combat system, but it's kind of that mobile game style fun that we've all experienced at one point or another, where you kind of auto battle and it just feels good to complete something. Where again, if you like the design of a game driving everything through the completion of something and that feeling good, that'll work for you. But for me, again, it started to wear thin as my journey went on. And keep in mind, I'm not mega deep in the game. And when you combine that with just how tutorialized the opening of this game is, it feels like it's just not respecting the fan base and their intelligence enough, and hoping that they can distract them enough times to kind of mask the actual issues with the game itself. But you're always just given something to do, and so it's low-key addicting. Like, I totally get why people have a lot of fun with this game. The main story is a little bit interesting, but I don't think it has the same mystery and intrigue and the what's going on here that Pokemon Legends Arceus has. Again, Pokemon Legends Arceus had a bit of this melancholic atmosphere to it where you knew something was off, but you kind of enjoyed being there because you weren't from this time period. And that feeling is not really captured here in ZA. You ride a train into the city, you kind of get rolled immediately into the whole, hey trainer, I'm actually gonna be your best friend now. We're gonna fight these people who stole your bag together. And from there, you're gonna get invited to a hotel, and then you're gonna be invited to help a friend out. And when you help a friend out, you're gonna get pulled into the ZA Battle Royale. And that's all she wrote. But what's happening in Lumio City is like a reconstruction project. And because the city's under construction and these different zones are opening and closing, and you'll find like scaffoldings that you can climb and find collectibles high and low, like it kind of builds the narrative a little bit. But you basically learn that there's this mysterious event that's drawing all these Pokemon into the city, and everyone's kind of turning into a game, but now you're trying to figure out like, why are the Pokemon here? And so that's where the narrative takes a little bit more of an interesting direction. In particular, when Emma, who is a detective, enters and you start to learn like she's helping out one of your friends, and you're like, okay, there's something a little bit more personal going on here. I do have to say, I like Emma's fit, very Umbreon inspired, like Umbreon if it was a human. I don't know if that's actually what happens, but that's what it looks like to me. So all in all, the story is, I'd say, fine, inoffensive, right? So if I were to use the term mystery to define the kind of narrative hook that got me into Legends Arceus, I would say the term for Legends ZA would be slice of life. There is a level of coziness that comes with just hanging out, eating food together, getting to know one another, but it is a lot more slow paced. So if it gets more interesting and mature, it's definitely in the back half of the game. What I did notice though, while going through some of this story, is that the character animation is pretty solid, I'll be honest. And it does call attention to, once more, that these games should be voiced, because some of the fully animated cutscenes look good, and it's really awkward that when they're silent and you're not paying attention to the animation but reading text at the bottom of the screen. Especially when you look at the recently leaked budgets for this game and other Pokemon games, they could afford it, even the top of the line voice actors and actresses, and still be wildly profitable. I don't know what they're waiting for. It does their story a disservice, because these characters do have stronger personalities than other Pokemon video games that I've seen. And I feel if they were voiced, it would have added something to the game, and maybe even taken away from some of the criticisms people have had about other components of the otherwise stagnant Pokemon series. So naturally the question is like, should I look into this then, Manny? Here's how I'd word it, right? I'll always tell you, go look at Digimon Story Time Stranger first. But I struggle to be anti-Legends, because I feel like it is an answer to a lot of at least my issues with the series. If we're talking mainline Pokemon, download Digimon right now, my brother. Download Digimon right now, my sister. Right now. But Legends is something you could at least look at. Would I tell you to buy it for full price? Like, I paid 70 buckaroos for this. Would I tell you to do that? No. No, this does not look like a $70 game. It is not a $70 game. It is fun, but I think this is one that, like, wait for it to be on eBay for $50, $40, something like that. I know these Nintendo games, Pokemon games, don't go down in value, but it just does not look like a $70 game. It does not feel like a $70 game. And frankly, the real question is, will this call my attention for much longer with how I feel about the setting where Digimon switches things up and keeps things interesting and does have that fast-paced nature to it? So yeah, I know I've become like a big Digimon Story Time Stranger glazer out here. I'm the time glazer, baby. But I really do think if you are interested in monster catching games, like, that's the game I'm going to continue to point you all to. I've done 3 videos now, so if you're looking at this, you're like, oh, here it goes again. Maybe look into it. Maybe look at our review or check out other people's reviews on it. Like, game is really, really good. I guess the win in this is if you enjoy both, then we're all winning here. So those are my thoughts on Legends EA thus far. Let me know your thoughts down below if you're playing it. Other than that, take excellent care of yourselves, and I'll catch you in the next Retro Rebound. Peace out.